Hey, this is Devin over at Valor Insurance. I'm here with Mike from SERVPRO. We're just here, just kind of talk a little bit about, how our two industries mix, a little bit about what he does and how it kind of relates to insurance and some of the things that you guys could probably look out for. So, Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Mike Nitz. I work for SERVPRO South and Northwest Grand Rapids. Our shop is over in the Jenison Hudsonville area, and we serve pretty much all of Grand Rapids in West Michigan for fire, water restoration, mold remediation, that sort of thing. I've been in the business between being an insurance agent and claims and fire and water business. I've been in the business for over 23 years. So I've seen a little bit of everything from how the policies are written and how endorsements come into play, and then see how they work on the back end when it comes to claim time. So I have a pretty good perspective on how things can go wrong and go right. So,
Yeah, I bet you've seen quite a bit of things there.
we have seen some pretty amazing things.
So, I guess with all that, I know you guys do a lot of different types of remediation. What do you run into the most? Is it mostly like water, fire, mold?
Yeah, the major two things is water and fire.
Okay.
Water, it's sneaky. You have water running through your building, your property all the time, and eventually you're going to have a faucet break, a dishwasher line go bad, or a wash machine line. Wintertime, obviously, we see the worst of it when pipes break and that sort of thing. So that's a lot of that domestic water type of stuff, but we also see the sewage backup, water backup of sewers and drains. That's pretty much the meat and potatoes of what we do. But again, we do a lot of fire remediation too. Everything from a major fire to just smoke, having smoke enter the building and in your home and whatnot. So we do a lot of that type of cleanup. I'd say that's the majority of our business.
I'll tell you what, the smoke cleanup, that's got to be kind of hard. That stuff just sticks in there, don't it?
It does, and it really it's every kind of fire is different. If you have a smolder that is of like soft goods, or somebody left a cigarette on a sofa, that smoke is different than having a plastic fire or a chemical fire of some sort. Every smoke damage needs to be treated differently.
Yeah.
There's a science behind it, and what kind of products we use to clean that, and how we not only clean surfaces and whatnot, but how we clean the air, and how we're making sure we get everything taken care of.
Yeah, no, I can totally see that. So, I guess you guys probably, on the claim side, you guys work with insurance quite a bit, I assume.
We do. I'd say probably 95% of what we do is insurance work.
So how well do you guys work with insurance carriers? More likely the adjusters there, but how does that kind of relationship kind of go for you?
Yeah, our relationship with insurance companies has always been a positive one. When you're working with the brand of SERVPRO, we are a national company, but we're independently owned and operated. And our owners, our team, we have a great working relationship with a lot of the adjusters out there, both from an independent agency standpoint and from a captive agency. So again, we work well with your citizens and auto owners and your Frank and Moose, but we also work really well with your farm bureaus and your farmers and your state farms. So everybody's a little bit differently. Everybody, has their quirks, but we ultimately do what's best for the client.
And I'm guessing that, if it's all covered correctly, I'm sure that is just, everything goes really smoothly. But I guess, what are the most common things that people have wrong on their policy? Maybe they should have had this coverage, or they weren't covered enough here. Like, what are some of the things that maybe they could have done a little bit differently?
Yeah, unfortunately, you see a lot of times where you get an agent to say, "Here, let me take a look at your policy and see if I can save you some money." And what ends up happening is they take a lot of the coverages off the backside that you may not recognize as a tremendous amount of value. That one endorsement that we talk about a lot is that water backup of sewer and drains. A lot of people are scared by the larger number of coverage, but in reality, that number it has to be, from my perspective, it has to be minimum of $10,000. Depending on what it's going to cost to rebuild your basement. If you have a major water loss and you have to have your carpet pulled and your drywall pulled and your trim pulled and you have contents that are damaged, $10,000 go really quick.
Oh, I'm sure.
And so you really need to have a good agent that's going to really do that replacement cost estimator, not only on your whole structure, but what it's going to cost to replace that basement in a time of a loss.
So it's mostly like, when things aren't covered correctly, it's usually like the water backup. You don't really see too much of anything else.
Well,
Every once in a while, maybe.
so yeah, the sewers and again, just to talk a little bit about that water backup of sewers and drains. A lot of people think, well, I don't have a basement, or my basement's not finished, and I don't have a sump pump. Well, that's fine,
Yeah.
but water comes up from other places than from a sump pump.
Yeah.
Water comes up from your drains. That comes from your sewer line through your toilet. We see a lot of times when the city comes out and blows lines out. Well, they blow it out, but guess where everything that blows out goes? It's in people's homes sometimes. So
You don't actually even know that your drain fields can get overfilled.
That's right.
I know somebody who had their drain fill overflowed. It kind of came back in a little bit.
Yep, and if it goes back into the home, again, that's where you're going to want to make sure your agent has done their due diligence to explain to you what's important with that water backup endorsement. So,
Do you ever really see that where, I guess just not having the coverage. So, I mean, you probably see that claims getting denied because they just don't have that coverage or not enough. I mean, not enough wouldn't really get denied, but just not have that in general.
Well, actually, I just talked to somebody last night that had a water backup coverage, or a water backup claim in their home, and they didn't have the endorsement. They chose not to have it.
Oh, jeez.
And they had a claim, and they ended up paying $20,000 out of their pocket, which is who has $20,000 laying around? Nobody, not me.
Not me either, man.
But even the problem is, too, Devin, is you have somebody that has $5,000 worth of coverage. We come in and do the remediation, and it could be as minimal as $1,500 to $2,000. But you get into a major remediation, it's going to cost you $5, $6, $7 grand.
Yeah.
And we've exceeded that in just the remediation portion of it. Now, if I got to put it back together for you, we're going to ask, where does the coverage come from? So, yeah, it can be challenging and quite difficult to explain to the homeowner that, you're only gonna have this much coverage. And usually that's the discussion that the adjuster will have, and then we'll try our best to sharpen our pencil for folks.
And I know some people get this kind of confused a lot, like the difference between water backup and flood.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we're both in the industry. We know the difference, but I mean, kind of what's your thoughts on what's the difference there for some of the people who don't know?
Again, I was an insurance agent.
Yeah.
I don't carry my license anymore, so I don't give insurance information or how it's going to be covered, but you typically know what is and what's not going to be covered.
Yeah.
Water that breaks inside the house, a break a pipe, your sewers, drains, water backup, if you got the proper endorsements, it's going to be covered most of the time.
Yeah.
The problem you run into is like especially in the springtime when you've got frozen ground, you've got snow melt, and then you have rain that goes on top of it. Water starts to creep in the house through your foundation or finds a window or something of that matter where it gets into the house from the outside. We know for sure most of the time that's not going to be covered.
No, because really anytime water actually hits the ground and then comes in the house, more often than not, that's going to be classified as flood.
That's correct.
You know what I mean?
There is minimal companies out there that will write anything water that's hydrostatic, which actually means comes through the concrete.
Yeah.
In the years that I've been in the business, I think of one company. I don't even know if they do it anymore, but nevertheless, again, most of that is preventative. Making sure that you're doing all your due diligence, making sure that the grade on your home is done properly, your gutters are cleaned out, and making sure that when water does build up on the outside of the house, you're doing everything you can to prevent it from coming inside.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've been doing this for a long time. So, I mean, what's the most common cause of like a water backup claim? Is it usually like the sump pump fails, or I mean, is there usually one thing, or it just feels like it's just a bunch of random things all the time?
Sump pump is a lot of it. Actually, there's a couple different things. Sump pump is just like anything. It can run great one day and it doesn't run great the next. Okay?
Yeah.
And it goes out. Obviously, people rely on the sump pump to work when they have major rain, and sometimes it just doesn't work. Sometimes the spindle gets corroded and the bulb that's on that will get hung up, and it doesn't allow the water to eject. So that's one thing. Second, obviously with technology, with refrigerators and wash machines and dishwashers, you have water plugging into them things all the time, and the water's turned on all the time.
Oh yeah.
That hose or the water line gets compromised, and water's in your house pretty quick.
Oh
so
yeah.
Those are probably the three major things from an appliance standpoint. And in the springtime, People turn on their sprinklers for their first time or go out and wash their car, and they hook up the hose, and the water pressure is not great, but they go in the house and then their water is all in their basement. Well, we have a frozen pipe, that broke, and you don't realize it until spring.
Oh yeah.
So those are the pretty much the common things from a residential residential standpoint that we see from a water damage.
So do you have like one instance where one claim kind of stands out the most, or one instance like, man, this is like the worst one I've ever seen? Like, it was just crazy.
Well, yeah, I've seen a lot of them. I'll give you one from a residential standpoint, and unfortunately, it was a home that was just moved out of. It was purchased, and the new owners came in to start doing some remodel.
Okay.
And I think the home probably sat empty for probably a month.
Oh, okay.
And I think the time when the people that left it shut the door is probably when the water started.
Oh.
Literally the water was in the kitchen, but because of the temperature being like down in the it was the outside temperature was like in the high 40s. The inside of the house was in the low 50s. You got tons of condensation in the house. So the ceilings, the walls, literally the drywall was just dripping off the studs. It was just melting.
Oh, jeez.
And it was pretty much head to toe gut. So.
Oh man.
And that's probably the worst from a residential standpoint I've seen, and it gets nasty quick.
Dang. So I guess like, do you have like an easy way or some kind of way that or people could kind of figure out how much water backup they should have? Like, you know what I mean? Like, is there some kind of calculator? Like, because I know when you're kind of looking at, like, most places will do a replacement cost estimator on the first floor and up. You know what I mean? Usually right now I think it's like $150 to $160 a square footage to kind of replace.
Right.
Is there some kind of calculation or some way some people can kind of figure out if they're kind of covered correctly on the basement side?
And again, that's a conversation you want to have with your agent.
Crew.
Because, if you do have a unfinished basement that's all concrete, obviously there's not really much to repair. Okay?
Yeah.
The only thing you're going to want to do is make sure it's dried out properly. Usually, a fan and a D, couple fans and a D will take care of it. But when you're talking about, a lot of these homes that have a basement, walkout basements where they've got the game room and the living room and 3 of the kids' bedrooms and a storage room, you really have to kind of take a look at what the total square footage of living space is down there. Understand the type of construction you have in there. Is it just a builder's grade? Do you have custom cabinetry, custom trim? Do you have high grade carpet? Do you have a laminate or tile? Because if that water collects in that lower level and damages all that, $10,000 ain't gonna cut it. So
No.
that's where it's really responsible to have that conversation with your agent. Say, hey, listen, I have a lot of these types of things in my home, and I want to make sure they're covered properly.
Definitely. I totally agree on that. And I think a lot of people, I think that gets missed a lot, in all honesty.
It does.
No, definitely. So what does the process look like for, like, let's just say a sump pump failed? So what does the process that usually look like that on your side, like the remediation side? Like,
we get a lot of people that call me up and say my sump pump went out. I got water in my basement. We appreciate the call, and what we will typically do first is we'll refer them to a plumber, and we have a bunch of plumbers that we refer business to all the time. We really can't start remediation until the water's taken care of, or the cause of the water has been taken care of.
oh, okay.
So once we get a new sump pump in there, the water is regressed. The sump pump starts to eject the water out of the basement. We come in, we start sucking the water out, getting things dried up, assessing the damage, and moving them through the process. So we try to set up steps. We try to set up those expectations, and again, giving them resources with people that we work and trust is basically how we move forward. When you have a pipe break, okay, we've got the water turned off to the house. Well, that's not sustainable for a long time, right?
No.
So we really got to get that pipe fixed. 9 out of 10 times I've seen plumbers come in and make a bigger mess
Oh, geez.
fixing things before it's actually fixed. So what we don't want to do is come in, remediate, have a plumber come in, make a big mess, and then have to come in and do a second cleanup. That's going to cost you more money, the insurance company more money.
Oh, jeez.
And
Yeah.
That's why setting up realistic expectations, understanding what the process is. It's not that we don't want to hurry up out there, but let's do it right the first time so I'm not back there a second time.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
So how long does it usually take? Because, I mean, obviously, cleaning up all the water, making sure
Yeah.
it all dries up. Well, like, how long does this process usually take? Like,
It all depends on the severity of the water loss. I mean, typically you're looking at 72 hours with air movers, dehumidification, and then air scrubbers. And what that does is just the air movement along with the dehumidifiers. It's going to just pick that moisture up. That dehumidifier is going to do a lot of the work, just pulling as much water out of the structure as we possibly can.
okay.
We are not a construction company
Yeah.
that does restoration. We
Yeah.
are a restoration company that does reconstruction. So when we're doing this, we're not real quick to start pulling drywall and trim and doors and everything out.
Well, yeah.
Because what happens sometimes is you have your adjuster show up and go, well, why did you pull all this? Couldn't we have saved it? Well, so what we then do is we get things dried out, get things moving. We have a conversation with the adjuster. If the adjuster and the homeowner or the business owner says, yeah, we're going to go ahead and pull a little more, we're going to pull it to what we need to.
Yeah.
And then we're going to put it back for them. Having the conversation with the adjuster is going to do a couple things. First of all, it's going to save my client, your client, money from paying anything out of pocket that the insurance company is not going to pay for. 2, it's going to allow us to put things back a lot quicker.
Yeah.
And 3, it's going to get your client back in their home a lot faster.
Oh, yeah, definitely. No, I totally agree with that. So when you're kind of dealing with these claims, what's usually the most cost? Obviously, the reconstruction kind of can start add up, but is it kind of like the cleanup, the mold removal? Like, what's usually the biggest cost of the whole claim?
Yeah, the remediation part of it is it's not it's not cheap, and that's and I'm the first one to admit that. Especially when you're dealing with mold, there is some additional costs, and a little bit has to do with liability. We have to promise you that the mold that we remove is not going to harm you any longer.
Yeah.
Now, I can't guarantee you that mold's not going to come back.
Well, nobody can really.
Right. So, but I want to make sure that if Mrs. Smith, who says their kids have allergies to mold, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that it's done right. And it's not cheap. Like I said, if they want mold testing, we always send it out to a third-party hygienist. And the reason why that we do that is because we're actually allowing somebody else to tell us what the problem is.
Yeah.
And then what they do is they put together a prescription of what needs to be done in the remediation, and then we work off that recommendation. And again, that keeps everybody in check. There's checks and balances through the whole process so that we're not just guessing or doing more than what we have to do. We're doing everything professionally recommended.
Okay. No, I mean, that makes completely sense. So, I mean, I know you kind of touched on it already. So, like, if a client says, you know what, my basement's empty, I got nothing down there, just a furnace, hot water heater, which, I mean, they can still get damaged to some degree. But they still need water backup.
Yeah. If you don't have a basement, doesn't mean you don't need sump pump, backup of sewers and drains and sump pump. You have a sewer, you have drains, you may not have a sump pump, but 2 of the 3 things you still have in your home.
Yeah.
So if you do have a sewer and a drain that has the potential to back up, you should really consider your agent's recommendation for adding that coverage. Don't waive it.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, the cost that you're going to accumulate over 10 years is going to save you 10 times the amount if you have one loss.
Oh, yeah, true.
So, I mean, that's the thing is, well, I don't have a sump pump or I don't need that coverage. Well, really think good and hard about when you talk to your insurance professional, that they're not there to try to sell you more than what you need. They're just trying to help you be prepared for the unexpected.
Exactly. Like, we just want to know, hey, if something happens, we want you to go back to being whole.
That's exactly correct.
It really is all.
And that's the key word there is making you whole again.
Yeah.
We don't want to have to not put carpet in your basement.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
you don't have any coverage.
Yeah.
So I mean that's the key word right there.
So I guess what are any tips to kind of help prevent like something from happening, like water backup, like my sump pump failing? I mean, you got usually recommended tips that you kind of give out to people to just preventative
Yeah,
type stuff.
when it comes to sump pumps, there's a couple different things. You can obviously make sure your sump pump is checked every spring, every fall. Like I said, there's a spindle on that sump pump that can get corroded. Take a little bit of like a sandpaper and just get that spindle cleaned up so the bulb will flow freely when the water does rise in the crog. You can always get a battery backup for your sump pump, so when you do lose electricity, that battery backup will kick in and make sure that keeps running even when you don't have any power. And then also you can get I'm not too familiar because I'm not a plumber, but there's a water generated sump pump backup that you can install also that will help keep that sump pump running. That's for sump pump. Anytime you have wash machine lines, dishwasher lines, refrigerator lines, it's always good to maybe just check those annually and make sure that the hookups are not getting corroded or anything of that sort. A lot of the prevention that I offer is actually exterior. Again, right now, we're at this time of season, it's a good time to get on your ladder and make sure that your gutters are cleaned out and your downspouts are pushing away from the home.
Yeah.
Birds and whirly birds in the spring and leaves in the fall, they're going to collect in the gutters, so that can cause water to build up. You're going to get some ice damming, and that's where we have a big problem in the wintertime. Making sure you unhook your hoses from your faucets outside, especially because if there's water left in that hose, that water is going to freeze, and that water expands, and it's going to expand right into your faucet, and the pipe's going to crack. It's going to happen every time.
True that.
And you can do that, but you can also purchase a cap. It's a little styrofoam cap. You can get it up at Kingsland Ace Hardware, or Gemmons Ace Hardware, or in Hudsonville, or one of the big box stores. It's a styrofoam cap. It has a little plastic hook on it. You pull it tight. It sits flush to the house, and it's insulated.
Oh, nice.
And those things cost you $5.
Oh, that's not bad.
So if you have two faucets on your house, it's going to cost you $10 to $12, and you're going to save yourself from having a cracked faucet pipe.
Probably only takes a few minutes. Probably install it. Probably it's pretty easy.
I can do it. I think anybody can do it. So.
So I guess what's the best way for people to kind of reach out to you? Just kind of Google SERVPRO, or is there a better way if they have some questions?
So again, there are a couple different SERVPRO franchises in the West Michigan area. I'm with SERVPRO of South and Northwest Grand Rapids. We do have a 24-hour emergency number that's local, 616-662-9700. You can check us out on Facebook, SERVPRO of South and Northwest Grand Rapids. You can go to our website. You look for me on Facebook, on social media. You can message me. I am probably the easiest guy to try to get a hold of, and I never will turn down a call for somebody that calls me up and says, "Hey, Mike, I have a funky odor in my bathroom, or I have a funky odor in my basement. I'm just trying to figure out what it is." For us to do a consult like that, we never charge a dime to do that kind of stuff.
Oh, nice.
So what we try to do, Devin, is build relationships, especially with our insurance agents, with our local associations like the Chambers of Commerce, those types of, and ultimately be a resource.
Yeah, definitely.
When we talk about prevention, especially when you have these, homeowners that these young kids that are buying their forever homes now, they don't know where to turn the water off. I mean, I can come in and show them and tag their water shut off for them, kind of do kind of a preventative walkthrough. I'm always glad to do those types of things for our clients.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, hey, thanks a lot, Mike. Anything else you want to add, or maybe that we can cover?
No, I think if I can give one takeaway about prevention is getting to know you guys at Valor. Having a good conversation with these guys, with your insurance agent. They're not here to take advantage of you. Basically, you guys are here to protect your client from the unexpected,
exactly.
The sudden, the direct, and the accidentals.
Yep.
And the value of having a good relationship with your agent that really takes care of every aspect of coverage, from your home, your auto, your liability, your life. If they could package all that for you and have your best interest in mind and give them the resources like what we're talking about today, find value in that, because there's a lot of great agents out there, and they want to take good care of you. So
No, I totally agree.
yeah, that's our takeaway, I guess.
No, awesome. Thanks a lot. It was nice chatting with you
You
today.
bet. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.